This is Morbo, the newscaster from Futurama, and you are listening to This Week in Geek with Mike the Birdman Dodd and the rest of the TWIG crew. They are my favorite puny humans, and when my race absorbs and destroys yours, I shall not do it to them personally.
Who disrupts my coronation? Everyone has been destroyed because of this freak. I won't allow it! These babies just saved this lame fest party!
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to This Week in Geek, and I'm your host, Mike the Birdman Dodd. But of course, I'm alone and in self-isolation, though not by my own choice. I am joined by the man in Kitchener himself,
Alex, the producer, who looks outside and holy moly, are we going to get a storm?
You know what's weird? So I woke up early this morning because my sleep schedule is a disaster, not unlike college a million years ago. It was so quiet this morning. There's so few cars and people out. All you could hear was birds. Like, this is getting into apocalyptic eerie territory now. Like, it's weird.
Which, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Would you rather hear drunks and drug addicts fighting in the streets? I mean, that will come eventually.
Yeah, that will happen at some point. We're not quite at Fallout, but we're definitely approaching levels of weird. Although, as the day wore on, we eventually started hearing motorcycles and everything. And it's funny, our provincial government issued what I think is one of the funniest things they've done, and one of the most things that makes the most sense to me. Two things they said. So, number one, you cannot gather in groups of 5 or more people right now unless you happen to live together or it's essential childcare, etc. So that makes sense. Okay. Great. I'm glad they've done that finally. Number two, can people not go to rural areas and wait this out in their cottages because they don't want to strain on the local healthcare system? Again, this makes a fair degree of sense. I'm glad it happened, but it just makes you picture all these rich white folk. And okay, that's a broad generalization there, but all these rich folk just heading up north and just hiding it out in these $1 million cottages on like all the lakes that surround Ontario.
You know, my family is white. We weren't rich, and they had a cottage. They just happened to buy it back in the 70s when it was like $6,000. So
yeah.
So I mean, then they sold it like 25 years ago for $100,000. It would probably be like north of $1 million now. But
yeah,
but like I could see, like, it's in the case like my Oma, my grandmother. I said to her, "How are you dealing with all this?" "Well, I can't go to the seniors programs." She goes, "But if the weather gets a little bit warmer, I can go in my garden, and then you can, leave me alone for 3 or 4 weeks. I don't care." So, like, people like her, she would be happy living way up north of the cottage for, as long as she can do her gardening. That's all she cared about. And, that's not necessarily a bad idea. Just since you can't really work, as long as you got Wi-Fi up there, go to the cottage.
Like, it makes sense from one thing, because you're away from people, you are socially distanced by natural barriers, but you also don't want to overwhelm people who live in the smaller communities and whatnot. So I get where they're coming from. I just found that a little bit weird that this is the time that we currently
live in. You don't want to plug up them hillbilly hospitals, is what you're saying?
Well, smaller hospitals do have a harder time managing anything remotely close to this crisis. I come from a smaller area. I come from like cottage country. And our hospitals are not certainly equipped to deal with something on this scale, which the news out there not right now, as of this recording, is not good. So we have decided
it's a lot worse if you're in Quebec.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like 3 times the amount of infected people.
Or if you happen to live in the United States, I feel a tremendous swell of pity for you. I hope leadership will happen for you.
It's really hard not to say I told you so, but when you hear so many people in the States for so long were saying, well, you know, for one, they were either saying, well, the president says it's a Chinese virus, in quotes.
Yeah.
Or you hear people saying, well, it's not going to happen to me. I'm strong. I have a good immune system. No, this is not what matters.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you hear people saying, oh, it doesn't happen to us. We've got the best healthcare in the world. We're America number one. Or you hear, oh, I heard it's going to be over in 2 weeks. Well, we're 3 weeks in now, and there's no end in sight, and it's worse than it's ever been, and there are more cases in America than anywhere in the world.
Yeah,
and then you hear people changing their tune. Now they're saying, "Oh, we never said that. We never denied it. You know, no, we were always taking it seriously." It's like we have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have videos, endless videos of so many people changing their tunes and then pretending like you're a bad person for reminding them that they were stupid.
Yeah, it's kind of astounding. Like, history is like, this is my thought, and we've also made a choice here at TWIG. In the coming weeks and months, as this, frankly, crisis continues, we're going to try and steer away from it as much as we can. As much as it impacts the news, we're going to try and mitigate that process. So expect us to talk about it less and less as time goes on, but if it's a significant story, we will talk about it. However,
if it affects everything as a whole, of course it makes sense to talk about, but otherwise, you listen to every YouTuber out there, you listen to any other podcast, and it's like 12 stories of the same thing. You know, coronavirus did this to this person, coronavirus did that to that person. So what? It's happening to everybody. What other news is actually happening? Because I'm sorry, the whole world doesn't just stop completely.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, right now, we stand at a very unique cultural moment in history. We're watching history happen as it did for our grandparents. Like, we're watching like what happened with them in the Great Depression with our parents, and coming out of the various wars of the 60s, 70s, and the 80s. We're watching things change. This is happening on a very global scale. It's slowed down markets, economies, countries everywhere.
Great Grandpa Richie was born in, I think it was 1908. Dude was a kid during the Spanish flu. So, you know, like that, it's not that far away. You know, like we always think about these big diseases and pandemics being like so long ago, but it's like, I knew somebody who lived through that. And what it was like to go through World War I and World War II and all this. And you hear about this. We just had this long time where it didn't affect us. It affected everybody around the world except for North America. And now that we're hit, it's interesting to see how our two countries are facing things differently.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to look back on this point in history in like 10 years, to read history books, and they'll be written from various perspectives and various authors. It'll be interesting to see how the world reacted to this, how the world changed to this. And I myself have always been the eternal optimist. I have great hope. I know it's going to take a long, dark path to get there, but I think we're going to emerge on the other side of this okay. I just think it's going to be hard, and that's hard to hear for a lot of people. But as always, as I said, as the eternal optimist, do not lose hope. Do not despair. That is one of their greatest enemies at the current time, is if you give in to despair, then what have you got left, really? So that being said, let's continue on with the show we were planning to do 2 weeks ago as we continue our quarantini. I did mention that I was working on a new podcast. We're working on several different shows, such as Twig Sunday Funnies, which you can hear last week on the site or through your regular iTunes feed right now. We're working on Loose Cannon, which I'm starting in the American Ninja movies this week. But I also have started, as I have previously mentioned, the Harry Potter Book Club podcast, which I'm going to be starting hopefully going to start reading this week. Alex suggested I take an afternoon each week, unplug, turn everything off, and come back to the world in a few hours. And I started working on my pre-production elements. I was able to get the Harry Potter soundtracks through a friend of mine, and I was able to create a audio intro. And what you're going to hear is the intro that I put together for the podcast. So take a listen over the next 45 seconds or so. And when we come back, we'll continue talking about our week and what you got to look forward in this edition of the TWIG Weekly Podcast.
Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry.
He's going to the finest school of witchcraft and wizardry in the world, and he will be under the finest headmaster that Hogwarts has ever seen.
The sorting ceremony will begin momentarily. You will come forth. I shall place the sorting hat on your head, and you will be sorted into your houses. They are Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin.
Ha! Another Weasley. I know just what to do with you.
You're a wizard, Harry.
And that was my intro to the Birdman's Book Club. Now, my goal is to change it up for each book that I'm reading in the Harry Potter franchise. And this series will eventually branch out into other books. I'm thinking about doing the Hunger Games, about reading Divergent, Percy Jackson, revisiting some Stephen King books. So I'm going to change it up for each thing that I do. This way it gives me a creative outlet. It also gives me just more content for you, and it helps me be enriched, not just as an individual, but you as my podcast listeners. So look for that episode premiering sometime in April. I'm going to start reading this week. I'm reading Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and then I will proceed on to Chamber of Secrets and so on and so forth. Speaking of Harry Potter, one last note, I also got an early review copy from audible.ca. They sent me a copy of Beetle the Bard, and that is read by an all-star cast, including Jude Law reprising his role as Albus Dumbledore from the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them series. Also features Jason Isaacs, I think it is, the guy that played Lucius Malfoy, and some of the other characters. I know the girl who played Ginny Weasley's in it. Luna Lovegood's in it. And I can't remember who else is there. I want to say the Professor of Charms. Either way, fucking Wicket from Star Wars, I think, is one of the voices too, but I'm not 100% sure about that one. But still, I'll have a review next week, probably. It's either going to be on the Twig main show or on Alex's Tour to Treasure. So keep a listen out for that. Other than that, this week has mostly been spent playing Persona 5 Royal. I got my review code last Saturday, and let me tell you about the life of a reviewer. So typically the process goes, when you want a game from a company, you just say, hey, so-and-so company, I would like to review your game. Can I get a review code? Typically yes or no. And they look at a variety of different factors, and typically they will approve you on said factors. Your reach, your how many people you reach, et cetera, but they also look at you as a person, your influence, right? Your social footprint, or other times it's the relationships you fostered over the years. And thankfully, thanks Alex has come back to the show. He's helped me foster a number of these relationships back. And this particular relationship is now one of our best, Sega Atlas. So I didn't think we'd get a copy of Persona 5 Royal because Alex informed me copies were going to be limited because this is a title that is hotly anticipated. It's one of the exclusives on the PlayStation 4 that really stands out. So odds of me getting a copy were not great, but still we asked. Now, Alex, as you heard last week, got a copy. And he got that a month early, which is almost unheard of in this industry, unless you're getting an RPG and it requires 120 hours to play or however long it takes to beat, whatever. So I pre-ordered a copy of this game. Cool. That's a sunken cost. I want to play the game of Joker on Ryuji Morgana. I know what to expect. I've accepted this cost, whatever. So a couple days goes by, or a couple weeks rather goes by, and I get an email last Saturday. Hey, Mike, how's it going? Just wanted to let you know, here's your code for Persona 5 Royal. Cool. I got a review code. Neat. I can cancel my pre-order. And with Sony's policy, as long as you haven't downloaded the game, you are allowed to do so. No questions asked, no problem. We'll get that done right away, sir. Party on. Guess what wasn't working and isn't working because there's nobody in the office? Take a wild friggin' guess. Sony tech support on almost all levels. They're ignoring almost everybody on Twitter right now because they're overwhelmed, and I don't blame them. There's nobody in chat support. The phone support, you might as well be talking to the wall. And I consider this a sunken cost of game journalism. I could have got my money back, but I can't.
So basically, you paid, and then you got 2-week early access.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, I've played 40 hours right now, so I've made half my money back already.
I put about 75 in, and that was with the first 20% of the game I was able to fast forward through because I had played it previously. You know, like skipping some of the dialogue. So it's still an 80 or 90 hour game. And
yes.
And that's if you're playing it on normal. I was playing it on easy, so I probably got through a little quicker than other people would have. Because for me, I wanted to play through the narrative more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. So that is my review story for this week. So
it's okay. You want a review story? Okay. It's all up in the air as to who gets Final Fantasy, right? Everybody wants Final Fantasy. But just to be safe, I had a pre-order on Final Fantasy from last June when after E3, Walmart offered a deal. Pre-order it and it's $54.99 instead of $79.99. Sweet. Pre-ordered it, put my credit card on it. Credit card had to be renewed in like October. Just a new card where they give you a new code on the back and new expiry date. Sweet. Cool. Well, the game doesn't come out for a few weeks, but Walmart tries to bill my card when it's a card that is a very low limit card that I use basically for groceries. And then at the end of the month, I'll fill it up with money again when I get paid. So it's usually pretty much right at max because it's such a low limit card. I just keep balance, balance goes in, balance goes out. Well, they try to bill it. I'm like, it's several weeks before the game comes out. Why are you trying to bill my card? And no response. It just says, call us to fix it. I'm like, okay, I call. I am on the phone on hold for an hour. And that's after 3 times of calling in. And in the first ring, having it go, all of our lines are busy. Goodbye. And hanging up on me. They're not offering any online support whatsoever right now. They're only doing it through the phone. So I finally get through. After 58 minutes, my call gets through. They can hear me. I can't hear them. It hangs up on me. They then call me back, apologizing. I explained to them, I said, here's the card. It just needs a new code and from the back of the card and the new expiry date. Okay. And I said, and you can reauthorize that. If you really are going to charge it now, you can reauthorize it for, tomorrow or whatever. They said, okay, it can take 48 hours. We'll reauthorize the charge or whatever. I have no idea if that means they're going to ship it to me right away or if it means that they're getting things ready to ship or whatever because they're figuring for a long delay or something. But Walmart has been known to break street date because they don't care. It's been in the news. They don't care about street dates whatsoever because they're Walmart. They just don't care. So I'm like, okay. I wake up the next day with an email from Walmart. We've canceled your order. And I'm like,
what?
Why? And I go to call them. 45-minute wait on the phone. Oh, yeah, we canceled it. Yeah, you're not getting it. And there's no more pre-orders. But are other people getting it? Oh, yeah. I'm like, why? Oh, well, you had a billing issue with your card. I said, we resolved that yesterday. Here's my reference number. Yeah, sorry, too bad.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? They said, well, if it pops up again, you can pre-order it at full price. They just don't want to give it to me for $25 cheaper. They were looking for an excuse to not give it to me.
That's honestly terrible customer service on any
Walmart.
conceivable level.
I won't be buying from them ever again when it comes to games. I only got it because they had an E3 deal that was better than what Amazon had. So I'm like, okay, so now I've pre-ordered an Amazon copy because you can still magically do that for some reason. and that's my backup just in case. But if it turns out that physical copy is not going to ship on time, then it looks like I'm going to be buying digital, because literally we won't know. Nobody's going to know if they get a review copy till probably 4 days or 5 days before release. I severely doubt they're going to be releasing very many copies to people at all. So I literally have to wait till the last second to find out whether I should cancel my pre-order or if I should, buy digital or whatever. Because regardless, I'm playing day one.
Damn right.
I will be sleeping until 11 at night, and then I will wake up to play at midnight, and then I will not stop until, I don't know, Tuesday. It comes out Friday. You will see lots of tweets and lots of me going, "Oh my God, I need sleep," but I won't. So that's my story. That is what it's like to be a reviewer. When it comes
first
to
world problem, if there ever was one.
Yeah, there are certain companies where you can have a pattern and guarantee, but there are certain hot button and hot ticket items that you can't guarantee. And if you really want to get your content out, you may have to have a pre-order down, just like you did.
Yep, exactly. Because we were going to cover Persona 5 Royal no matter what. So
yeah, exactly. I was lucky that I was able to cancel my physical pre-order early, because I got like the code literally, I think it was like 35 days before release, which is unheard of.
You had it super early. So that kind of leads me into my next topic before we'll eventually start talking what we're going to talk about today. So that also brings up, we're going to have 2 prototypes coming out for you in April. We're going to have an extended Persona 5 Royal discussion. We're going to talk about spoilers. We're going to talk about some of the differences, some of the quality of life improvements that Alex covered in his review. But just what does the game mean?
Yeah, what does it mean to each of us, and what does it mean philosophically? Also, we can compare and contrast our playthroughs because they're fresh in our minds. And
exactly. So,
who did we pick to romance? Did we take this path? Did we go down that extra? Did we take that side job? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. As of this recording, I'm currently in June. I'm just about to enter the 3rd palace with Makoto breathing down my neck. So we'll see what happens when I confront the Japanese mafia. We're also going to be talking about Final Fantasy VII, because that's a game that was very much a part of my childhood and my entrance into the JRPG genre. And it's the last Final Fantasy I played through to completion. Because I haven't played through all of 8, because I honestly got really fucking sick of it. I didn't play 9, though, hearing many wonderful things about it.
But both 8 and 9 are great to pick up now, because they have a fast forward option and a infinite health option built into the games.
Although I did like Final Fantasy 13 Lightning Returns, but I got stuck at one point.
That's the one I didn't play because I hated the first one, but I really liked 13 2.
Yeah, like I honestly thought that series deserves a little bit more love, but we'll talk about that. So anyway, guys, we got a lot of stuff coming up for you on the show this week. We have a review of Modiphius's Star Trek Adventures, the sourcebook for the Delta Quadrant, one of my most hotly anticipated titles from Sony Home Entertainment. We have a review of Valiant Comics' Vin Diesel movie Bloodshot. And finally, we have Bobble for Friends. And who's that from?
That is from InIn Games, ININ, on behalf of Taito.
So we'll be looking at that here on TWIG. So once again, thank you for joining us. Here is our review of Bloodshot, right here on TWIG. I've been Mike the Birdman Dodd, joined with Alex, producer, right now.
With every movie basically being pulled from theaters because theaters don't currently exist, every major company has been putting their videos directly either to rent digitally on video on demand or releasing them early for home release on home video. And I had a chance to check out Bloodshot, which is a movie that I had actually had tickets to go see. And the day I was going to go see them is the day that every theater in North America closed. I got my refund, obviously, but then Sony and Columbia Home Pictures gave me the opportunity to check out the digital release of it, which is, it's out available now for video on demand, digital to check out. We'll put links in the description for it. And I wanted to give my quick thoughts on it because this isn't a full, review because I got to see a screener copy. I didn't get to see, the final release that will have all the special features and everything later on. That'll come at a later date if we choose to review that later. As far as the movie itself goes, I had a pretty fun time with it. It's one of those movies where if you are a fan of 90s, blockbuster action films and then early 2000s CG where they had that almost video gamey look in some aspects, you're going to have a pretty fun time with this. The cinematography is really good. The color, almost like the hue, saturation, the tone, it's sort of like a mixture of Tony Scott films, if you know what I mean that way, like Domino, or how he would have that sort of acid wash damaged look with like hyper neon realistic colors. It's sort of a mixture of that with like the XXX Vin Diesel movies. And if you're somebody who's read the comic, it is based on Valiant Comics run of Bloodshot, which I've got when they relaunched the comic, it was about 5-6 years ago, maybe more than that now. I've got the first couple of hardcovers printed of that, and it's as faithful as one could hope without being, directly to the page. It's entertaining enough, and they've adapted it for Vin Diesel's sort of style of movie. To give you a quick rundown of what happens at the very beginning, Vin Diesel works for the government. Vin Diesel goes in with his military boys to, take out bad guys. He gets found, and when he gets found, he decides to take out one of the bad guys by picking him up and choke slamming his head through a sink and toilet that explodes. He is then tied to a chair when he gets tranquilized, and a guy dances to music wearing basically a robe and sandals or slippers and dances towards him a la Reservoir Dogs, ready to kill him. So that gives you an idea of the kind of zaniness that's in this movie. Some of the CG is really top-notch. Some of the CG is what were they thinking sort of territory, but it actually adds to the experience because I had a fun time watching it regardless. Now, as far as the audio goes, Sony's pretty good about putting a dynamic soundtrack in there. Now, I watched it. It was in stereo because it was a screener copy, but it is something that's going to be released in 5.1. And even from the stereo copy, I could tell that it had a pretty bombastic, loud, dynamic soundtrack. So that's good that way. Acting is pretty much what you'd expect from like an 80s or 90s action movie, which is great. As far as something that you can watch with kids, not so much. It's not so gory or way over the top that I would say you can't watch it with kids, but it is something you might want to consider. It's not the goriest thing in the world. It's not the most profane or the most perverse or anything. There's no real nudity or anything involved here. It's just suggested. It's PG-13 sort of all the way. Your taste may vary, so it might be something you want to watch first before you watch it, or you let your kids watch it. But it's honestly, in my personal opinion, it's nothing too major out there. Now, as far as rewatchability, I can see this one being watched over and over again when you're introducing it to new friends and family. And especially right now, we need something big, dumb, and popcorn related to watch when it comes to dealing with the boredom of being at home. So I'll put links in the description for how to watch this, because it's something that you might want to do while you're stuck at home basically doing nothing.
News on the march!
We are here with Twig to deliver to you the news that'll hopefully not depress you, hopefully inform, entertain, and bring a little bit of joy, or at least make you ponder a little bit with your day. I'm, of course, Mike the Birdman Dodd. I'm here with Alex the producer. Let's roll things, beginning with the good old place of Hollywood. And Hollywood is reporting when the weekend box office zero for the first time. So as of last Friday, and for the first time since the 100-plus year history of the motion picture business, virtually all cinemas in the U.S. were closed amid the coronavirus pandemic, as well as much of the world. On Sunday, somebody had received, I'm just reading this email from the Hollywood, or this story from the Hollywood Reporter. I received an email from ComScore, the industry's receptacle for grosses, and evidently, things had changed from going to full stream to no revenue, as they are quoted as saying in a blink of an eye, as the National Association of Theater Owners Chief John Fiffen told me in a recent interview. Some of the people currently affected by this, I'm just going through this story, just kind of reading it here. It's basically an opinion piece. I'm looking for some hard kind of numbers here, but one of the numbers here that I want to read here, or one quote, it's one of the industry people that was quoted is, I'm just looking for the name of the person, and I can't.
While you look that up, I'll say something. I was going to go see Bloodshot and My Spy on the 12th, which is the day they closed every theater in North America. Remember?
Yeah.
That day, it was reported there was $10,000 in profit, and those were just independents that, and it's for every theater. It was $10,000 estimated across all of North America, because it was only like a handful of single screen theaters that were still open, and that was until that evening when they were told to close.
Yeah, like some people didn't get the emails till later in the day. Some theater chains hung on until the last possible second.
And the thing is, so depending on the state and the province they were in, or the city, once they opened, they had to be open for at least 4 hours to pay their employees. So in some cases, they still got one screening in.
Yeah, like it was not good. So I'm just going to read from the back half of this article, and then we will go from there. So the first wave of frenzy for box office junkies began around noon on Friday, when studios began privately estimating weekend grosses for the top 5 or 10 films. If you're lucky, sources will share this info. There are updates on Friday night, followed by Saturday morning stories on Friday grosses, and then the Sunday crush. And forget having a break during major holidays. Try explaining that to your family year after year, when presents can't be open until you finish your Christmas morning story, or why it's tough to travel over Thanksgiving. We are creatures of habit. When I went to bed on Saturday night, I stared at my iPhone, lost. What time should I set my alarm for? I decided on 7 a.m. to preserve some sense of normality. For Loomis, it meant getting up at 5:30 a.m. instead of 4 a.m. It's weird to look at the grosses and see nothing, he told me on Sunday. For ComScore ambassador and box office analyst Paul, I can't pronounce this guy's last name, I'll just call him Paul D, it meant setting his alarm for 7:45 a.m. instead of 6:30 a.m. He wanted to be prepared in case he received emails or phone calls from journalists. Mine was the first he received, and that was well past 10 a.m. Digesting numbers is baked into my DNA, so Sunday was a very strange feeling. I feel like a very lonely Maytag repairman. We are in an ecosystem, and it represents more than just numbers going out, but a lot of hardworking people who are stuck in neutral like so many other businesses. Sometimes we talk about what a bummer it is to have to wake up so early, but believe it or not, we will be very excited to set the alarm for 6:30 on a Sunday morning. All of us. I never thought I'd see the day when box office numbers were 0 in my entire life.
Well, I mean, I guess it does make sense, because unless they
jumped on this surprise, like Universal was the first. They offered The Hunt, they offered The Invisible Man, and they offered Bloodshot, which had only been in theaters a couple of weeks at most.
Bloodshot was Columbia.
Sorry.
That was the one that Sony Columbia offered right away. Universal had Invisible Man, The Hunt, and something else. Was it Little Women?
Emma.
Yeah, okay.
That's Little Women came out in January.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry. And then I believe the other was
Trolls World Tour comes out in 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah. Warner has started putting theirs out too.
Yeah, they just released Harley Quinn, and they just released something else. And I know Sonic the Hedgehog
that's
just
Paramount,
released her.
Right?
Yes.
And then there was, I think, Bad Boys. I forget who put that out. One of the companies is putting that out as well. Universal was doing the big push. Oh, and Disney put out Onward.
Yeah, and that's going to be available on Disney Plus in like a week.
Yeah, they put it out for video rental initially. So they're all started doing it. The big push, though, was Universal said everything. They're like, anything we had currently out in the last 2 months and whatever's coming out in the next month is going direct. Yeah,
so it's going to be... I think this is a fascinating time, and I do mean this. This is a good time whether studios can judge, is it worth putting some premium stuff on demand? Because I've been saying for years, since I became disabled, and more or less once I stopped leaving the house outside of things that are absolutely necessary. I'm not quite agoraphobic, but I don't like going out as much as I used to when I was younger.
Well, mobility is a factor too, which is probably what plays into it.
Yeah. Mobility is a huge factor, but even before that. But the point I'm trying to get at is I'm willing to pay $25 for a rental because for me, as we discussed, I think it was last week, going to the movies, it's a minimum $30, $40 investment to start with. So this allows me to stay at home, be comfortable, and watch the movie over the course of my 2 or 3 day rental period in the comfort of my own home. I am absolutely willing to sign up for that.
Now, for me, there's a couple factors that have to be at play here. If you're going to charge me $25, I want it in 4K and I want it with HDR. If you don't have that ability to show me in that format, or you're not willing to do it at that price point, I'm willing to wait for a home video release where I can spend $29 or $35 and pick up the 4K UHD disc that has HDR and all that stuff built in. I think if you're only offering 1080p stereo or 1080p surround, which is what most of these companies are offering, it should be $10. And if the argument is, well, when you were going to theaters, generally we average it out to be, the price of 2 tickets because usually people go see it with somebody else. Okay, fine. You want to charge $20 some odd, then it better be a permanent release. That's not, when I go to see it in theaters, I'm seeing it on a 100-foot screen with like 20 speakers around me in theater seating with the whole experience. When I'm getting it at home, unless you're somebody who's rich who has like a 75-inch screen, the average person now has between a 40 and a 50-inch television. And even if you have HDR, which I know you don't, it's not the same as in theaters. And I'm not going to spend $25 on that. Unless they are doing what some of them are doing now, is with the digital rental, they're actually including rental of the special features that are going to be on the discs as well.
Interesting.
And you'll see, or they'll even show, you can watch it. You get, or some of them will do it like you get 3 watches, or you'll get it for 3 days, and that also includes a commentary track, so you can do a second watch with a commentary.
That's pretty cool. And honestly, that would sway me. I mean, now I did see a rumor today, and it didn't come from WeGotThisCovered.com. And for fuck's sakes, people, will you people stop sharing that bullshit?
Or 90% of the sites that people post on Facebook.
Like, honestly, you can trust superherohype.com for that type of thing. You can trust anything from Kotaku and IU9.
Comic book is half and half. It depends.
Yeah, it depends on the day. But the point I'm trying to get is I saw from a fairly reputable site, there is talk that Mulan and Black Widow may come to Disney Plus. I'm willing to pay a premium for that.
Like, would you be willing to pay for it? Like, hey, everybody gets access to like, if you go to click on the video, it says access to this video will be made available September 1st. But then it says, if you'd like to unlock it now, here's a one-time $10 fee to add it to your account.
Yep, no problem.
Because then they're getting their $10 a month plus an extra $10.
Yep, no problem. And I know that sets a horrible precedent, but we are in horribly unprecedented times now.
But then the idea is it wouldn't be a requirement because, hey, if you wait till September, it'll be there.
Exactly.
But if you want it, if you want it now, here's the deal. That's not a bad idea. And I think Amazon and a few other services could learn from that. Specifically for theatrical releases, if they start doing bullshit like, hey, if you want to get the new season of Stranger Things a month early, pay us an extra $10, then they can fuck right off.
Yeah, exactly. For like anything like that, I don't think they're going to get away with, but things that are going to theaters, things that are meant to be a premium experience, okay. But yeah, you're not going to get away with them charging for a new series of like Ozarks or even Big Mouth or something like that. It's just not going to happen.
What about Young Sheldon? We have to have it early.
Get fucked. I hate that show. But yeah, I mean, like, it's going to be an interesting thing moving forward because this quarantine and this stay at home order, people are going to be using a lot of VOD. Like, there's so many people talking about using movies and stuff right now. People are buying things on Amazon, which good luck if you work in an Amazon warehouse right now.
You are the unsung heroes.
You really are. Logistics people right now. Like, I know we have friends of the show like Ken. Thank you, man. And I got a friend of mine named Amanda who works in a grocery store. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I worked for a while before going on disability for a company that did truck driver support, and truck drivers are probably never more needed than they are now.
Yep,
like they're always needed for the infrastructure, but the fact that they're keeping going through all this, and they're the people bringing the relief support in like hotbeds like New York City, or Montreal, and it's usually a thankless job. They work crazy 16-hour shifts, and then they have to sleep in the bed of the vehicle, or they have to pull over and wait so long. It's a lot of rules involved with them, and so far we haven't heard of anything major. You haven't heard anything about truck drivers refusing to work or anything. In fact, that they're hiring more and more drivers now.
Yeah, so good on you. So this will be an interesting experiment for the entertainment industry to see how it adapts. I know one story we were going to talk about, but we didn't, is that YouTube is reducing most of its services to standard def to handle high load. Now, it's not to say you can't load an HD stream. It's just everything by default is now being set to standard resolution. So the entertainment industry is going to adapt. So IT is a vital part of infrastructure right now. So anyway, moving on to our next story, and this one kind of surprised me. So as reported back in 2019, the American TV show 24, which I think its finale aired in 2008, but there was the remake, or not, like a different version of 24 aired in the early 2010s with a different main character. I don't know whether they even referenced Jack Bauer. I would imagine they did. And then there was like a 24 little spin-off movie that featured him in Africa. But the show got a Japanese remake, and today they've learned a couple more details about the show. So according to Yahoo News Japan, the show will star popular actor, you'll have to excuse me, my Japanese is terrible, Toshiaki Karasawa, who's been nominated for 2 Japanese Academy Awards as the Jack Bauer character. The Japanese version of the protagonist is named Gemba Shido. As with the American show, the Japanese counterpart will also have a wife and daughter. In the 24's first season, the show featured David Palmer in the race for the U.S. presidency. The Japanese version will center around the country's first female prime minister. The show will change to reflect Japan and Japanese society, but in a way that evokes the original show. There will be a CTU type unit, but the original program's technology will be updated for 2020. 24 Japan will start airing this October in Japan on TV Asahi. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this. I'm going to find a way to watch this legally.
You know what'll happen if it's not going to be available? Let's say for whatever reason there's no channel in Canada that shows it, or even a streaming platform. I wouldn't be surprised at first if Netflix picks it up, because they've done that with some J dramas. But what I could see happening is it's a big enough thing that somebody in the fan subbing community will release subtitled versions, so you'll be able to either apply a patch yourself, or they'll make some option where you can obtain it to watch, because it seems like such an odd project not to come out here.
Mm-hmm. Like, I kind of want to watch it subtitled at first, because I want the original actor's intent. The fact that he's Academy Award nominated, I don't want a dub, at least right now. And
there won't be a dub for a very long time.
That's not to say there wouldn't be a fan dub. And it's not to say there aren't some great fan dub actors out there.
True. But I
want the original performance.
The fan subbing community, the ones that do like the Sentai stuff, like the Power Rangers, you've seen those fan subs. They have different colors for each person talking, so you can tell who's talking. Like, I would say the fan subbing community is better now than it's ever been. And that is a project I could see somebody jumping on like crazy, as long as there's no legal means to watch it in your country. That's generally the rule of fan subbing. As soon as somebody licenses it for North America, they won't bother, because they want to keep within the law. But when there's like no means to watch it, we'll find a way. Could you imagine just how tense it's going to be, and like if it feels the same as 24?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's like, would it be eerie to you that it's just not in English?
It might be a little bit different, like, because the first season of 24 I've seen like 3 times and I know it fairly well. So I'll be very curious to see how they mirror the David Palmer storyline and all the different twists and turns. Is the Nina Myers equivalent character going to kill Jack's wife at the end of the season? Who's going to be playing the daughter?
Spoiler, I didn't know anything about it.
You've had it since 2000 and whatever.
Honestly, I've had since then and I've never liked it, so.
Really? Wow. I love that show. Although I didn't watch the last season with like Freddie Prinze Jr. I kind of gave up on it. Which is unfortunate because I turned one of my favorite characters in season 7 evil and just, it bothered me.
It was at the same time as Lost and I was a Lost boy.
Yeah, in season 7 of 24, they bring back from the dead, which I hate that trope in media. They bring back Tony Almeida, who was a character who got arrested in season 3 or 4 because his wife got blown up in a car bomb, and he decides the Americans are evil, and I need to do this to avenge her death, Jack, and this is what she would have wanted. And not if you watch the show, motherfucker. And I love the guy that plays Tony Almeida. I loved his character, but I didn't buy it for a second. However, season 6 did have RoboCop as the bad guy, Peter Weller. So that was kind of fun as Jack's dad, I think.
He's one of those guys that just pops up out of nowhere and you're like, wow, you're so much better than I would have expected. Why didn't you do more? And then you find out it's because you know why? It's because
he's really picky.
No, he acts to get money. And you're like, oh, everybody acts to get money. No, he gets the money so he can fund his other ventures. I believe he has a doctorate, or he was working towards a doctoral thesis in fine arts.
So Dr. RoboCop's?
Pretty much like he was literally using it to finance his like never-ending goal of taking university forever.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. I mean, I'm so glad Peter Weller can do whatever he wants when he wants. I'm a little sad he didn't take part in the Ultimate RoboCop documentary, although he does give them his blessing. Like, I think they've talked to like every co-star but him, because he says, I've said everything that I need to say about RoboCop. But it would have been nice to see them get the In Search of Darkness treatment that I know can come from documentary filmmakers. But I'm looking forward to 24 Japan. I think it should be cool. I want to know what type of budget they're working with, because when Fox originally aired 24, it had a pretty high budget. Like, you'd see a lot of car chases, a lot of helicopter shots, a lot of gun battles, and it was, I would say it's as good as anything you'd see in a fairly decent action movie. And they did this week to week, so who's to say? Hopefully 24 Japan will live up to expectations, and we'll have yet another reason to see a Jack Bauer type character on TV, because I'm very curious to see how they'll adapt to the political climate. Because Jack, the ends used to justify the means, and if that meant torturing somebody, he would do it. I don't know how Japanese culture works in that regard, as I've always considered Japan's culture fairly reserved. But what do I know? So I'm very curious.
You need to watch the movie Silence, from the one that was directed by Martin Scorsese, starring Adam Driver. And Spider-Man, but Spider-Man from the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Garfield.
Andrew Garfield.
Yeah. It takes place in like the 1500s when Japan was closed off to the world, and they were not as reserved back then.
Oh, well,
they were very torture-y.
Oh, well then, I guess we'll see what happens.
That goes back several hundred years, right? So,
yeah.
By the way, fantastic movie. Don't watch it more than once, though, because it's one of those hard watches.
Okay. This next story comes courtesy of IGN, and a hacker has reportedly stolen the Xbox Series X graphic source code and is holding it ransom. So the news arrives through a blog post on the AMD website, where the hardware company explained the situation. We were contacted by someone who claimed to have test files related to a subset of our current and future graphics products, the statement read. According to a report from Torrent Freak, this data was stolen. The stolen data was found in a hacked computer and includes source code for AMD's Big Navi and Ardent GPUs. The latter is rumored to be part of the Xbox Series X 12 teraflop GPU. Segments of the code have been posted to GitHub and subsequently removed. The hacker is asking for, and get this, $100 million for the code and is threatening to dump the entirety of the stolen data if a buyer isn't found. The fact that AMD has issued a DMCA takedown notice on the repository where the data was being held would suggest this is a legitimate breach. Later in the official statement, AMD made it clear that the stolen data is not the core of the competitiveness or the security of our graphics products. You can read the details of the DMCA request over on GitHub, where it is noted that the data had been forked over to other repositories after the first set was taken down. In later news, GameStop CEO says there's no indication of Xbox Series X delays. Additionally, the Xbox X Series X specs were revealed in their entirety, which Alex covered on the prototype a couple days ago. Big if true, $100 million?
Well, this is in all likelihood, this is a $2 billion development.
So it's a drop in the bucket.
It's not a drop in the bucket. But it's not an unreasonable amount to request. It's an amount that could be given.
So how would these people get it? Did they like take a stolen laptop or something?
Yeah, or they hacked in. So they hacked into somebody who wasn't secured as well as they should have been when they were tunneling in. Usually, you have very secure remote tunnel software that verifies before you get in. That's how any corporate business works, but there could have been a security flaw in the network they connected from. A lot of times they force you to connect from your home, but somebody might have connected from a Wi-Fi network that wasn't recognized or something. But here's the thing. They're asking for $100 million. That's enough money that any company will go, fine, we're going to hire 2 or 3 people just to kill you. Like, no, if I had a multi-billion-dollar project that would potentially, deal with worldwide implications of how it affects your business moving forward for the next 5 to 10 years, and they're asking for $100 million, and it's a multi-billion-dollar project, you potentially can lose $5 or $10 billion or more from this research being leaked. And I was, let's say I had not the same morals I have now, and I was more unscrupulous. I would contact them and say, okay, we're going to send you the money. By the way, once you get the money, we're going to give it to you. You're going to give us this back. And if you don't, we're going to kill you. And by the way, we're still going to kill you. So spend the money wisely. And like, that's enough to get not just a killer. It's enough to get the best killers in the world, the best assassins to kill the person.
It's just the way you're talking about it sounds so clandestine, but you're probably not wrong. This person's mysteriously never going to show up.
If they're like, okay, they want us to give $100 million, and we're for sure know that they have it. Why don't we just spend $20 million to hire the best people in the world to find them using satellites and then fucking kill them?
Well, I'd like to know how they even think, like, unless they have an escape plan, what's your plan? Because $100 million, that's not money you can just disappear with.
What the thing is now? A lot of the hackers that are out there now are new generation hackers. What I say by that is new generation hackers are younger millennials and Gen Zer kids, whatever you call them, that like to think they're really good at hacking or really good at something, but they're not at the same level as the Gen X hackers were. The hackers that were born in the late 60s and late 70s, up until the early 80s when we were born, like we were sort of that generational divide. Those were the hackers that had plans. They made the Silk Road. They made the dark web. It's one thing to grow up in this and learn how to use these hacking tools and learn how to navigate or think I'm a part of it because I'm on IRC and I'm on the dark web doing this stuff, and I'm part of 4chan and all these other websites where they dox people and stuff. Yeah. You think you're all part of that, and you think, oh, I'm hot shit. I've got this on a secure drive, and I'm going to, reroute my VPN to this. They're not going to be able to find me. No, they'll fucking find you, because you know what they're going to do? They're going to hire some dude or some lady in their 50s, late 40s or 50s that were actual hackers back in the day that did actual espionage. They're going to find you, and they're going to send somebody over there to cut your fucking head off. Because they can do that, and the people that they're going to hire the people that run the websites that this hacker uses to find them. $100 million, dude.
Yeah, that's true. That's
this isn't $1 million. This isn't something like this is the kind of money that people on like 4chan and all that, like, or even not even there, like the real dark web. This is the kind of money where they're like, you know, whatever ethics they have about being anonymous, they'll be like, yeah, I'll take that. Give me $10 million. I'll show you exactly where the person is. Like, they'll do that. That's too much money to pass up. So that it's stupid to ask. While it might be the right amount of money to ask, it's a stupid amount of money to ask because you're going to get killed.
Yeah, because unless you hide it in the right places, like I said, that's not money. That's world market changing money.
$100 million is enough for the Caymans to give you up. Like somebody will give you up.
Yeah, like that's not money you can just hide in your parents' basement. You better be on the run for the rest of your life. And considering we're in a pandemic right now, good luck. Like, I can only imagine what travel restrictions, like, hell, they could even find you just who's traveling a shit ton.
Like, it's not, and the funny thing is, it's a lot of money, but it's not like $1 billion or something stupid where it's impossible to move that money. Like, at $1 billion, you can't, like, how do you move $1 billion without involving the largest banks in the world? You can't do it.
Or governments.
And $1 billion, you can't move cash. And $1 billion is too much to put into Bitcoin. You can't use cryptocurrency. Like, but at 100 million is like drug dealer money. They're going to move in and out of the Caymans. So like, you can do that, but it's also the kind of money that like you go to pick up your money in the Caymans and somebody drags you behind, a store. They cover you in a burlap sack and then chop your head off.
Yeah.
Like, that's like $100 million, man. I guarantee
just the idea of AMD assassins amuses me to no end.
Dr. What's her name from AT&T coming out there. Hi, we just want to make an announcement. Yes, we received this threat, and by the way, we're going to offer $1 million to 100 different assassins to find this person. This is
bounty hunters.
This is the plot of a movie.
It really is.
We've hired Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Boba Fett.
That crazy bastard McAfee that invented the McAfee antivirus and also likes to poop on people. We're going to hire him, Ice-T, Bill Gates, and the entire East LA Crips and Bloods. And we're going to hire them to go out with like 3 unnamed assassins. We're going to follow them with a film crew. Then we're going to kill you on live television. And at the end, we're going to announce what the video card is. like they could do that.
Best E3 ever. That's how you do E3 right.
You find out it's a publicity stunt, and it was some guy who worked for AMD. He goes, well, you just told me to pretend to be a James Bond villain. You didn't. It'd be like, yes, but didn't you see in the dotted line here? It says we're going to chop your head off whenever we're done. Like, your family's going to get paid, okay, but like,
you die.
It's like. It's ride or die at AMD.
So
and the whole time Intel is sitting there like and then you got NVIDIA in the corner going it wasn't us.
AMD.
Be like, oh yeah, and like, it just like the Dr. Lay, whatever her name is, who walks out, turns the mic sideways and just says AMD out, and drops it, walks away, and then just big poster on the wall. It says Navi 2 now in Xbox One Series X.
Buy the console or else. Oh Lord! So moving on to our final story for something a little bit of levity from AMD Assassin. We have Ryan Reynolds is circling a live-action Dragon's Lair movie for Netflix. So Netflix has picked up the rights to adapt the 1983 arcade game Dragon's Lair as a live-action movie. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Deadpool star Ryan Reynolds is in talks to both headline and produce Dragon's Lair. Should the deal go forward, Reynolds will portray the game's hero, Dirk the Daring, a bumbling and occasionally capable knight. Within the two Dragon's Lair's video games, Dirk was forced to save his true love, Princess Daphne, from Sins of the Dragon and a wizard, Mordrock. The original Dragon's Lair hit arcades in 1983 and quickly became a sensation thanks to the animation. The series was created by former Disney animator Don Bluth and Rick Dyer. Bluth is also producing the live-action Dragon's Lair for Netflix after pursuing an animated feature for several years. Joining Bluth as producers are Gary Goldman and John Pomeroy, with Roy Lee and Trevor Engelson as executive producers. Dan and Keith Hagerman, the Lego Movie, will co-write the script. The Hagerman brothers are also show-running the Nickelodeon upcoming series for Star Trek, I think, Lower Decks. Dragon's Lair has previously been adapted as a Saturday morning cartoon and a short-lived comic book that was, I think, on ABC in the 1982 season. If Reynolds tries on, he will be his third project for Netflix after Six Underground and the upcoming action film Red Notice. However, Dragon's Lair is currently without a director or a start date.
Well,
this is pretty
Dragon's
good.
Lair is something they've tried to get off the ground for a while. Don Bluth is basically retired because he's like 90 or like 100 million or whatever. He's literally, as far as I know, knock on wood, I think he's the last of the old Disney animators.
Guard.
Like, and not old guard, like he was the young guy in the 50s and 60s. You know, the guy that they would like say was too ambitious or, was whatever. He was the young whippersnapper that didn't get along with people. And then he stayed there until he got pissed off with how they ran things and started his own company.
Yeah.
And but I do believe, like, you hear about people saying, Tim Burton worked on his last feature, I think, together with him was it Fox and the Hound? I think they worked on together. And he was like the junior there. But like, no, this is like the guy that worked with the old men. Like I forget what it was, the old men, 6 old men or whatever they used to call them. The guys that were the main animators from the 20s all the way up through like the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the last guy. I think he's the last bastion of original animators that still knows how to properly animate 2D hand-drawn art, not using a computer.
And Don Bluth stuff is usually very good. There is some hit or miss stuff, but this is a guy who did Secret of Nim.
Yeah, he had a period.
Tale,
Rockadoodle through like Thumbelina, the Penguin and the Pebble, or whatever it was called.
Did he do Fern Gully?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Oh, he did? Okay.
He did. He had a period of like 1991 through 96 or something like that. They were kind of crappy stuff. But then his last major picture was the one that tanked Fox Animation Studios.
Titan AE.
Yeah. Which is a great movie.
Fucking fantastic movie.
It just didn't do well. It was a great animated movie. I still really enjoyed it. I would people that saw it in theaters.
Yep, same here. I saw it in theaters.
But he had he did a series of like detailed, really good art, and just was the last probably great 2D animation studio.
Yeah, and all his movies have a very distinctive look. I know friend of mine, I don't know so much of you, but Mars Girl did a huge series years upon years ago looking at almost all the Don Bluth movies at one point. So if you want to find out more information, you look her up
I'd have to
YouTube.
Go check it out because I've always liked his stuff. And, he did those Laserdisc games. What was the other one he did? It was Space Ace?
Space Ace, yeah.
Yeah. I know.
Or Roger Wilco? It was one or the other.
He tried to make...
It was Space Ace, though.
He tried to make Dragon's Lair, and there was Dragon's Lair 2, I think. He tried to make them into a new animated movie or animated feature. Years ago, he did a Kickstarter, and he had been doing things showing off how they were trying to raise money, bits and pieces here and there to self-fund it. And it looks like Netflix finally picked it up, probably because Ryan Reynolds was like, I'll do it. And then they're like, okay, well, now he magically has as much money as he needs to animate it. So knowing him, even though he's really old and probably can't do too much of the animation himself, he will probably still storyboard it.
Oh, yeah. Like he'll storyboard, he'll oversee. He's going to have some executive day-to-day role in some capacity. So I'm looking forward to it. I've always liked Dragon's Lair as a game, although it's terribly hard. I've never beaten it, but I've always liked it. So that's what we're going to end on for this particular segment of the Nerd News. And we're going to take a look right now at my review of Star Trek Adventures, the Delta Quadrant, coming to us from Modiphius. We'll be back, guys, right after this, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
Personal log, stardate 48546.2. Our journey home is several weeks old now, and I have begun to notice in my crew and in myself a subtle change as the reality of our situation settles in. Here, in the Delta Quadrant, we are virtually the entire family of man. We are more than a crew, and I must find a way to be more than a captain to these people. But it's not clear to me exactly how to begin.
Hey guys, Mike the Birdman Dodd here, and I'm here with something rather special today. This is a book I've been looking forward to for what seems like forever, and this is Modiphius' Star Trek Adventures, the Delta Quadrant Sourcebook. This is the book I have wanted since the line first started doing all their supplementary sourcebooks, like the Alpha Quadrant, Beta Quadrant, to a lesser extent the Gamma Quadrant, but the Delta Quadrant, that's my jam. Star Trek Voyager is the one series I've seen front to back probably twice, and I have a number of favorite episodes, such as pretty much anything involving the Borg, Someone to Watch Over Me, the episode where The Rock shows up randomly, stuff like that. As you can see, I'm a bit of a Voyager fanboy. So reading through this book over its 140 pages-ish was a pure joy. So much so, I've actually read the book cover to cover twice. So much so, I was provided a review copy for this, but I also decided to purchase it as well, because that's how excited I was. But I'm obviously front-loading this. You might be asking, Mike, is this book something really important? Well, as I said, this book is the Delta Quadrant, so this covers species like the Voth, the Vidians, the Borg, obviously, which are a huge part of this book, and pretty much the main reason to get this book. But you also get stuff on the Ocampans, the Talaxians. I think you get like 12 new playable species. You get the Hirogen. There's some really cool new rules here. They also cover Anarax, who, if you remember him, he was the Krenim scientist who had the Krenim time ship. So Red Foreman using time travel as an evil weapon. There's a really cool rule where basically, if you as the game master want to spend, I think it's like a point of threat, you can force me as the PC to, guess what, that didn't happen, re-roll it, jerk. And it's a wonderful way to turn the tide on a fight if you don't like the way it's going. Plus you get stats for all sorts of different Borg ships, from the Queen's Diamond, the Borg probes, the Tactical Cube, which I didn't realize had like 100-meter thick armor in places, and has like 100,000 tactical drones. So basically Borg tanks walking into a place, doing assimilation, and killing anything that gets in their way. Wonderful times. You also get stats for the Delta Flyer, the Delta Flyer 2, some new traits, stuff like that. Also, cool characters like Hugh, who we most recently saw in Star Trek Picard, may he rest in peace, and also Commander Shelby from the Best of Both Worlds episodes 1 and 2, and I think she's been mentioned in a few novels here and there, probably Star Trek Online, but that game sucks. So there's a lot to go through here. I mean, you get rules for like different worlds. I didn't know the Borg would actually actively go to Class Y worlds or Demon worlds and source them for different types of raw materials. One of the coolest things I found out before I get into the real meat of this is evidently the Borg will go to gas giants and harvest raw materials and actually refine these raw materials directly into nanoprobes, which then ships can use to make all sorts of different raw materials. And it's just something I didn't know. I was really, really excited to read that. However, the main reason to get this book, the big attraction, is this gives you all sorts of new information on the Borg. Yeah, we got, some things in like other books, like the main source, but like here's a standard Borg drone, here's what he does. But not here, you get how they different functions, like the medical drone, the technician, the tactical drone. I even found out that Ferengi are assimilated primarily for their data processing capabilities, which I think is really, really neat. And it's neat just learning how the Borg command structure works. You learn how they're set into smaller sects, and then they're put into larger ones with a adjunct. So that's why 7 of 9's designation was 7 of 9, tertiary adjunct of Unimatrix 01, which means she was a sub-commander, was able to issue commands to a smaller part of her collective set that she was a part of. So a lot of this just makes a lot of sense. It was just a really, really, really good read. Plus, a lot of the book does have quotes from Captain Janeway, Captain Picard. There's actually a section where the Borg is seen from the Romulans, the Dominion, the Cardassians. They talk about a crashed probe. They actually reference what happens at the end of Best Worlds episode 2, where they say, well, can we pull the same trick with the Borg falling asleep? No, because the Romulans have discovered the Borg have encrypted that back door, so you can't pull the same trick twice. And their scientists are no closer to cracking it due to multi-phasic encryption or something like that. Some technobabble. But it's really, really, really neat to read that. Plus you get stats for the Borg Queen, which is a huge deal. I mean, the book is just, it's a joy to read, especially if you're a Voyager fan. You can build entire campaigns built around the Borg, although you really have to be careful doing that, because if you read the stats of the Borg ships, they will tear your starships apart. And they actually say, don't use the Borg as, like, every encounter, because if you try and do a stand-up fight, you're gonna get your ass kicked. It's just not a good idea. They actually even give stats for the Borg unicomplexes, which can be destroyed, but good luck. And they should be the culmination of a campaign, as opposed to what's the adventure this week. And it is neat in that regard, that they do give you campaign ideas. Like they name a section of Borg space called the Hollow. Why is it like that? Why are there no ships really patrolling here? What's going on? They also talk about the hierarchy, talking about a Borg mining operation through this huge asteroid field, and how there's like 10 million drones, and there's like 200-meter thick armor on some of these asteroids where they're mining stuff and replicating ships and whatnot. Just some of the adventure seeds are kind of neat. There's actually one where they talk about a Talaxian trader landing on a world, and they get cloned by that silver blood material. Do you remember the episode where they had the fake Voyager? Yeah, you want to do that. They also have They also have an adventure seed. You fight against a Hirogen, a Voth, a Vidian, and some other creatures, and you basically do the same episode where the Rock showed up fighting 7 of 9 because reasons. So it's cool. They actually even give you an adventure seed where you fight against an assimilated creature on a planet. So imagine like a Targ with like assimilation tubules. So you could create weird monsters if you wanted to expand a like horror themed adventure. Ultimately, this is probably the most thrilling book that I think I've read so far for Star Trek Adventures. And I will admit I am very biased because I'm a Star Trek Voyager fanboy, unapologetically. And I'm really glad to see them reference things like this. I mean, they even reference the planet that was evolving super quick. Like it was, as Naomi Wildman said it, the weird planet that existed out of time. So they do reference things like that. They talk about Friendship 1. They also talk about how you can play in different eras if you wanted to, like during the original series or Enterprise era for certain species. And speaking of that, one of the species I forgot to mention, and one of the big draws to this, is they tell you how to play Liberated Borg. And one thing, before I finish this review out, they actually talk about variants of Borg, like the ones that assimilated Captain Picard back on the Enterprise. They were not ones you see in First Contact, because those guys had assimilation tubules, whereas in Best of Both Worlds, he was just grabbed and then taken to the Borg cube and assimilated surgically. So these older Borg variants, exist here too, and they tell you how to convert those for gameplay statistics. So that's really neat. They did answer some questions like that. So can I recommend Star Trek Adventures: The Delta Quadrant? Yes. Oh my god, yes. If you are intent on using a Borg themed campaign, very much so. If you want to explore the Delta Quadrant in any real depth, if you want to have these adventures with the Talaxians, maybe you want to find out what happened with the Hakan Order, I think it was, in the Metatron Cascade, you can find that out. You want to go track down one of these Voth city ships, you can do that. There is tons of adventures. Maybe there's more caretakers out there, stuff like that. There are so many adventure seeds they give you that I am so thrilled to recommend this book. This is probably going to be on my holiday gift guide later on this year, as I can absolutely recommend this book 100%. This is Star Trek Adventures of the Delta Quadrant. A review copy was provided to us by Modiphius.
We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile.
What makes you qualified to be a reporter? I'm willing to violate anyone's privacy for my personal gain and then claim with a straight face that the public has a right to know.
By the hand of Zeus, what manner of deviltry is this?
I love fake alien poop day.
And welcome back to TWIG, otherwise known as This Week in Geek. Well, it's time to talk about the weird, the wacky, the just plain fucked up things that happened around the planet this week. And, of course, it's all coronavirus news, because it's the end of the world as we know it. And I'm feeling more or less fine. So anyway, if you happen to live in Canada, one of the shows that is surprisingly decent and usually has a really good production budget, even more so than its U.S. counterpart, Big Brother. So Big Brother Canada is officially ending Season 8, only a couple of weeks into its run. It is ceasing production due to coronavirus. So coming from globalnews.ca, it has been an intense season of Big Brother Canada, to say the least. After the big coronavirus reveal, one self-eviction and 2 house guests evicted from the competition, Insight Productions and Global announced Tuesday in a joint statement they are prematurely ceasing production and officially bringing Big Brother Canada Season 8 to a close. With the added restrictions of the Ontario's COVID-19 province-wide lockdown, the production felt cancellation is the best decision moving forward. Big Brother Canada is a labor of love for so many, and even though it hurts to say goodbye to the season, it's the right thing to do, said Big Brother Canada host Ariza Fox. On behalf of the incredible people who put the show together, thank you to everyone who started this journey with us. Please take care and be safe. At this time, Big Brother Canada has no plans to resume production at a later date. After a truly unprecedented season, the show will take its final bow over 2 episodes, Wednesday, March 25th and Wednesday, April 1st. Now, according to this, there will be no official winner of this season, and details around the $100,000 prize money will be revealed during the show's final episode. Wow. This just cost this company a lot of money. And
don't be surprised if it doesn't cost that much.
It does, because I've watched a lot of this show. There's a lot of ad placement, and there's a lot of sponsored competitions.
As far as actual, there'll be clauses in their contracts
probably
that say that they don't have to give any of that shit back, because of acts of God, that sort of stuff. Like
God,
like the idea of if there's a tornado and the show doesn't air, they still have to get paid. So there's going to be cases like that. And reality shows, it's a Canadian reality show.
It looks better than the U.S. show.
I understand.
9 times out of 10.
Usually what they do is they end up hiring people that are just out of college, or they get interns. I wouldn't be surprised. How many episodes do they air of this a year usually?
It airs on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. So 3 episodes a week.
3 episodes a week for how many weeks?
Usually, actually, hold on. Blair, how many weeks does Big Brother air? 12 weeks? Yeah, 12 weeks.
Don't be surprised if it's $12 million budget for the whole show.
But still, that's significant for a Canadian show.
It is. The American show is probably closer to 20 or 25, depending on where they film it. A lot of times they get really good tax credits.
LA.
But this is not a case of a $100 million show. Like, they're not in big trouble. I could see this being a dirt cheap DVD release. They could throw
I don't think so. I think they're They're going to throw it up probably on the Big Brother Canada website. I think you can watch the live streams via slice.tv. Actually, that's one thing Big Brother Canada does over the US. Their live streams are free. Whereas in the States, you have to pay for a pass to watch it all season. If you want to tune in at 3:00 in the morning, you can watch that. But in Canada, yeah, it's free. And honestly, Big Brother Canada's cast is 9 times out of 10 more interesting.
You know what would have been more interesting for them to really keep it going? Switch the script around completely and set up these people at home to do home blogging during this whole home isolation stuff, and then have them basically make it an intimate thing to show their lives.
It wouldn't surprise me if some people who got exposure to the show, because a lot of them they do gain a following on Instagram or Twitter or on Facebook. They continue, like I follow a few of them on like Instagram after they finish their time on the show, and they're able to parlay that into some kind of a job. So if they're smart, yeah, they'll keep the momentum going. However, though, this season, when they mentioned the 2 people that were ejected from the game, one of them, evidently it was going to be like a fist fight, and there may have been some racial terms thrown around.
Oh, was this the really racist year, or was that last year where it was like so vulgar that the people should have actually been arrested?
There was a season previous, and I don't think Big Brother Canada did have some controversy at one point. I don't remember. Last year was fairly benign. I think it was maybe the year before that.
Was it the American one? It was either the American or the Canadian one that had something horrific. Like they had this one lady and some other person that was just like, they should have been screened out of even being on there.
There were some significant ones during the American one within the last couple of years for sure. Because me and my wife watch the Big Brothers pretty regularly. Canada's usually pretty good at getting interesting people with almost no controversy. This year, it was a little more controversial than most because they had a self-eviction in like the first week, which screws up the eviction process. And there was another girl who said, if you don't vote me out, I'm going to self-evict anyway. So you're going to have to re-vote.
Do you know what they could have done? Big Brother, Social Isolation Edition. It's just a guy named Tim and 5 different breeds of dogs.
It's puppy cam. But yeah, I mean, since our premier Doug Ford made the decision to close all essential businesses, that includes television. So no production companies are currently working. And with the provincial lockdown in place of gatherings, there's no more than 5 people. Unless you can have a crew of 5 people and it says essential businesses, you're not shooting anything. Right?
I've heard of some businesses how they got away with it right before the wire came down when they said, "Hey, non-essential must close completely." Was they were doing things like whatever scenes for their shows or movies that were literally one-person shots, they were getting away with having a camera guy, the actor, and the directors were in another room. They were basically wirelessly radioing talk to each other for directions, and then that had to stop. And now all you've got basically is the newsrooms because they're allowed to stay open because they're essential.
Actually, it's funny you mention that. So I watch a lot of news since this whole started. You'd be surprised how many anchors are doing news from their homes. TVO, which is a provincially funded channel, Television Ontario, they have a week or a daily news show called The Agenda, and its host is hosting the show from his home via some kind of hosting software, be it Skype or some other.
I think they might be using Zoom meeting. A lot of the stations are starting to do that.
Yeah, so they're doing it and they Skype in or Zoom in their guests that way. And the quality is pretty consistent. CP24, I'm pretty sure, because I've worked as a reporter in the field before, but some of the technology has changed. All they need to do is deliver a broadcast quality camera to you. You put a transmitter in your house, literally you just plug it into the wall and it can broadcast straight to the studio.
I'm reasonably sure CP24 and a few of the others are using technology that my brother helped develop when he was in high school. From a company
I think you told me about this.
A company called DeGero. They developed about 7-8 years ago, maybe more, technology that allowed you to use like 6 or 10 SIM cards in a transmitter that would basically... They worked in series so that you could get broadcast satellite quality streams of your video but from a handheld reportable device. You wouldn't need a truck. You wouldn't need a radio transmitter truck anymore. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're using their newest version of that tech, which is basically it builds it right to the camera.
Which they did use this to quite good recent showings at the Canadian elections this past October, because they were showing people from all over Canada and it was broadcast quality. So if that's how reporters are getting around it,
the first thing they did was the last 2 Olympics they used it. So
yeah. And
so it wouldn't be surprised if they're using that, because then you literally don't need even a camera operator. It can be operated from your phone. They sit there with their tablet or their phone, and they can actually see on their phone what the camera sees. So they can set it up themselves to look however they need to look. They don't need a makeup person or a lighting person, and they can go broadcast, and they press one button.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they're doing that. I do know some of the larger stations, like the national broadcasters, are running on a skeleton crew of 3 or 4 people.
Yep.
When the prime minister is doing his addresses every morning, there's basically the security team there with him. They set up a hard cam on him, and then they're using phone calls for everything, which is smart.
Yeah, you will hear a reporter occasionally yell, which does not happen very often. However,
they're separating them. There's like 10 of them there, and they're separated 6 feet apart.
Now, one of the things I did find interesting, and this is such a Canadianism, is sometimes when you see reporters, when we're out in the field and you have to conduct an interview with a person, you have to put a mic in their face. And sometimes that's you holding a stick mic with your like mic flash on it, right? And you always see the hand. In the industry, we call that phantom hand.
I think I know what you're going to talk about, and it's amazing.
Yeah. So some stations have taken to putting their microphones on hockey sticks with duct tape, which is wonderful.
I saw somebody monitoring going, it's the same interviewer. He's got the same stick. And then I'm thinking, like, I'm wondering if I was like the Kitchener Rangers or the Barrie Colts or Owen Sound Attack, I would be trying to see if I could pay the local newscasters to advertise by using their sticks.
Yeah, I mean it's a uniquely Canadian solution to a global problem.
Those sticks are almost 6 feet tall anyway, so when you extend your arm out, you're now beyond the limit of how far away you need to be, and it still gets your mic there, and it's not as expensive or even as unruly
as a boom pole.
A boom pole can be heavy. A hockey stick, you can hold it, from the hockey end of it, like the bottom part. You could lean that against your body to hold it steady. It's actually probably a better invention than trying to use like traditional tools.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a pretty smart solution. So obviously very sad for the job losses that have happened to Big Brother Canada. I'm sure Big Brother Canada 8 will be back, or Big Brother 9 will be next season, probably sooner as opposed to later, probably a fall replacement show if this current mess ends.
They'll probably release the series as lost episodes. As probably, like they can make a special, and once this is all cleared up, they can get them all together to do
basically a reunion show or something,
like a reunion show to say, here's what happened, it's too bad we couldn't go forward, and they could do a lottery based system to see who gets to come back again, maybe for another season.
That's a really good idea. Now, one of the other things, I was actually talking with JT, who is the host of Twig Sunday Funnies, and he was telling me, man, Mike, I bet you the adult industry is taking a hit right now. And it's funny he mentions that, because I've been reading some stuff on Reddit. I hang in some interesting communities, but I never post. And I've been reading this. This is actually a fantastic time for the adult industry, especially if you're a solo performer, because ultimately it's you. If you have a partner, your partner sets up your camera. And if you're a smart person who works in the adult industry or as a sex worker of any type, if you sell custom videos, pictures, or whatever through OnlyFans or Kink or the Cash App or however you decide to distribute your content right now, people are spending a lot more money right now because they're looking for something to do. And if you're home alone, there's nothing to do and there's nobody around.
They're craving intimacy of any type, whether or not that be true intimacy or just to talk to somebody in some cases. You got that. You got people that, not to say people are hurting financially, but you've got people where they're like, okay, I might spend $25 this week on entertainment. well, why don't I just do this?
Yeah, because most OnlyFans for a month worth of content is like $5. So that's a drop in the bucket overall. So it's an interesting time to be a sex worker right now. I think the stigma towards that industry is rapidly going away. So good on you if you can break into this industry. I have several friends of mine that work in this industry. Obviously, their identities will be protected. But I said to them, you couldn't have picked a better time, all things considered. I mean, if you're a breakout star now, think about what you can do later.
So what you're saying, Mike, is we need to make some extra money. We need to break into the industry, buddy.
Well,
times
may become desperate.
If we got 1,000 emails that asked us to do it, I think we'd do it. Right? 1,000? 1,000
minimum.
1,000 personalized emails, each person asking or telling us why they want us to do it.
Sure. Please don't do this. Anyway, moving on to my next story.
Because you're like, our fans are crazy enough they might ask.
Moving on to a somewhat related story, actually. So this one comes courtesy of 604now.com. As the world slowly learns to live in self-isolation, many people are turning to toys to help them to get through this time. And you may be thinking, Star Wars toys, Power Rangers. No, and Canada is no exception. As our country has been buying sex toys more so than others. A recent study looked at sex toy sales across the globe and found that Canada's sales have gone up 135% more than predicted. That's compared to the U.S., where sales have gone up by 75%, while Hong Kong is up by 71%. This report looks specifically at the numbers found from the company Womanizer from January 1st to March 6th. These numbers are in comparison to their perceived sales forecast. This, to further compare, here's how other countries affected by COVID-19 are doing. Italy is trending 60% above sales forecast. France 40% above. From January to February, sales have gone up 52% in Japan, Australia 31%, and the UK 13%. As it turns out, some products are doing better than others. We Vibe Chorus is already low in stock as people have shown increased interest during this time, said Womanizer Joanna Reef to Female. This could be due to the fact that We Connect app allows partners to control vibrations remotely, or for couples who work from home conditions together. So it looks like Canadians are doing just fine during self-isolation. Because honestly, in terms of businesses that would be considered essential, the sex shop and the stag shop are pretty low on that priority list. But you can also buy sex toys from Amazon, although because of Amazon's priority system right now, you're not gonna Amazon Prime a butt plug to yourself in 2 days. It'll get there when it gets there, basically. Because I've ordered some stuff off Amazon recently, and it's saying end of April, beginning of May for certain things. So Amazon Prime, or Amazon in general, is prioritizing like supplies of any type, like baby wipes, medical supplies, stuff that's considered essential, like groceries and whatnot. So I hope you got your stuff in before the lockdown began.
Yeah. Do you think it would be that we're actually taking everything much more serious, or is it just that we're much more horny?
I think kind of both, because I've been watching the Canadian response to it, and there's a wonderful tool which has been developed. I think it's called flatten.ca, and it shows you your postal code, and you put that in and you answer a bunch of questions about whether you have COVID-19 symptoms, and it tells you what's likely to happen in your area, what's going on, and it shows the province at large. And Canada, despite our cases going up, we're starting to flatten the curve. We're getting fewer cases spread farther out. So those numbers are spiking, but they're starting to flatten, if that makes any kind of sense. Basically, we're not as bad off as other countries around the world. Our self-isolation techniques are working, but we have to remain vigilant during this time. Otherwise, we're going to have another problem. Like, I know it was said today in the United States, as of this recording, the Americans' quarantine rule or whatever it is has been extended to April 30th as opposed to April 12th that President Trump originally said. So thankfully they're listening to health experts on this, but according to Ontario Premier, don't expect life to return to normal anytime soon. Like they're predicting well into the summer at this point. So it's going to take a long time. It's going to be a long time before you can go out and have a barbecue, go out to the park. In fact, all parks are closed across Ontario and any province that has declared a state of emergency as far as I'm aware. So go Canada, I guess. I mean, hopefully we can keep this thing contained as best as we possibly can. But that leads me into my next story, which goes back to our neighbors to the south. And once again, my heart goes out to you. So Americans are coping with the coronavirus are clogging toilets. This story comes courtesy of the NewYorkTimes.com. Sewage systems and toilets are backing up as consumers clean their homes with disinfectant wipes and turn to paper towels, napkins, and baby wipes to cope with the lack of toilet paper. Excuse me. Many Americans seem to be following the recommendations of public health officials to clean and sanitize countertops, doorknobs, faucets, and other frequently touched surfaces in their homes. The problem is many are tossing their disinfectant wipes, paper towels, and other paper products they used into the toilet. The result has been a coast-to-coast surge in backed-up sewer lines and overflowing toilets, according to plumbers and public officials, who have pleaded with Americans to spare the nation's pipes from further strain. Many say the woes besieging the nation's infrastructure have been compounded by the lack of toilet paper on store shelves, which is lending some to the use of paper towels, napkins, and baby wipes instead. Across the country, in Charleston, South Carolina, northeastern Ohio, Lexington, Kentucky, Austin, Texas, Spokane, Washington, wastewater treatment officials have beseeched residents to not flush wipes down the toilet using the hashtag wipes clog pipes. Flushable wipes are not truly flushable, said Jim Bunsley, Chief Operating Officer of the Northwest Ohio Regional Sewer District. They might go down the drain, but they do not break up like regular toilet paper. The plumbing repair company Roto-Rooter has issued a similar plea to its customers and said that substituting facial tissue for toilet paper was another bad idea, unless it's used in small amounts and flushed frequently. The California State Water Resource Control Board warned this week even wipes labeled flushable will clog pipes and interfere with sewage collection and treatments throughout the state. Flushing wipes, paper towels, and similar products down toilets will clog sewers and cause backups and overflows at wastewater treatment facilities, creating an additional public health risk in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. The agency said wastewater treatment plants across California were already reporting problems. It noted that most urban sewage systems depend on gravity and water flow to move toilet paper and waste and were not designed to accommodate disinfectant wipes and paper towels, which do not break down as easily and clog the system. The board noted that clogged sewer lines are more than just a headache for residents cooped up in their homes during a pandemic. Spills flow into lakes, rivers, and oceans where they can harm public health and the environment. Plumbers said they were fielding an increase in calls from people working from home and self-quarantine. We have noticed an uptick in the amount of clogged main sewer lines, and we have dispatched our technicians. We are pulling baby wipes out of the line, and we are seeing paper towels and Lysol wipes. Mark Russo, vice president of Russo Brothers and Company, a plumbing and heating service in East Hanover, New Jersey, said on Saturday. These items are things that should never be flushed down the toilet.
Now, here's the thing. You get a lot of people, like, my suggestion is to avoid all the toilet paper panic, just get a bidet. Like, it seems to be, listen to any podcast. But
they are hard to find right now.
Well, here's the thing. You can buy them on Amazon. And actually, if you want a toilet seat bidet, you can get a few of them still. You can get a portable one to supplement. Let's say you don't want to go completely, paperless. You could use that to wash up, and then you only have to wipe a couple times or whatever. But you can actually get by a lot of bidets that are the manual bidets that aren't like ones where it comes right up from the seat where you use your like a wand or whatever. Those are a lot of times advertised as two different products. They can be advertised as a bidet, and they can also be advertised as a diaper sprayer for people that use cloth diapers. They're basically the exact same tool.
Yep, just under a different name.
And a lot of times the diaper sprayer is literally the exact same tool, and it's like 50% cheaper.
Yeah.
And there's literally no difference. But then you mentioned that some people say, ew, no, that's gross. It's like, you realize that it's more sanitary than wadding paper up your ass, right? It's especially since it's been used by high society, rich folks for 300 years.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we've got a bidet in our house, and it's a wonderful invention.
I've got one. Here's the thing for anybody that, and I've talked to people that are like, ew, gross, or they think it's weird. Okay, if it's so weird, why does Google have one installed in every single toilet in their entire office building?
Why do entire countries just have it as a part of their normal infrastructure?
Exactly, it is more.
It's
sanitary.
just not a Western thing.
You know what? And do you know what it is? And this is quite literally the response I get from most guys that don't want it. They think, I don't want nothing being shot up my butt. That's literally the response.
And to that I say, get over yourself.
Get over it. Like I was like, and I said, okay, so what do you do when you shower? You move the shower head around, right? Yeah. It's a shower for your butt.
Yeah.
And you're making no waste for the environment when it comes to toilet paper. And you don't have to worry about something flushing or getting caught. And you're just using like running water. And then you still, if you still buy toilet paper to wipe to dry off, but like all these people panicking, going out and buying mountains of toilet paper. If I bought one of the Costco Kirkland, giant toilet papers that they sell for like, was it $18 or whatever? That's over a year's worth of toilet paper for me now. Once you have a bidet, you don't go back, son.
It's true. Honestly, it'll save you money in the long run. So our final story, and this one kind of comes kind of surprising considering the source, but or the person that it's about. So this one comes courtesy of my favorite radio program, Coast to Coast AM. So Dave Grohl of the legendary rock band The Foo Fighters claims that a troublemaking ghost kept disrupting the group's work as they were recording their most recent album. The weird account came via an interview the rock star did with the website NME, in which he revealed that an eerie series of events occurred at a 1940s home in the city of Encino, California, which had been converted to a recording studio. Grohl mused upon entering the former residence, he knew the vibes were definitely off, but the band's work was also particularly sharp at that location. Forging ahead with their recording of the new album, Grohl says the band began to notice the guitars would become inexplicably detuned overnight and that the settings on the mixing board would be changed for no apparent reason. Even more unsettling, he told the website, was that they discovered tracks that had previously recorded had been replaced with weird open mic noises. Nobody playing an instrument or anything just like that, just a weird open mic recording a room. We didn't hear any voices or anything really decipherable, Grohl said, but something was happening. The possible paranormal activity became significant enough that he actually brought a baby monitor into the studio to record anything out of the ordinary, which might have been happening overnight. Initially, they didn't see anything particularly out of the ordinary and began to have their doubts, but then we started to see things on the Nest Cam we couldn't explain. Unfortunately, Grohl does not say what exactly the band spotted on the baby monitor, but one can surmise that it perhaps recorded odd orbs or maybe things moving on their own. Weirdly enough, the rock star said that he did some research on the house and found out that something sinister had happened there in the past, though he was vague about the nature of the event because it would promptly force the owner of the residence to sign a non-disclosure agreement about the location. I want to say I've heard other artists have recorded stuff in haunted locations, but this is the first one I can recall in recent memory. Like,
I know a lot of 70s groups used to record at old villas in like England and France and weird places where they would report weird phenomenon happening, and that's actually why they would record there, because they felt that it either gave their creative juices an otherworldly flair, or there was a warmth to it. Like, not that it was like we're haunted, evil haunted. Sometimes people thought that the energy where they were recording, where like they would experience like ghosts or weird things happening. They felt that the music they were creating was influenced and made better by the spiritual presence there.
Yeah, I mean, there are some things I would like to do given modern recording equipment. I mean, there's this place in England, obviously not suitable enough to record like an album of any kind, but if you could bring in professional studio gear, I think it's called the Ram's Head Inn, and it's an inn that has existed since the 1400s. And it's said to be haunted by a witch. There's like a shadow person in there, which will physically assault you if you stay in one of the rooms. There's been a number of different videos on YouTubes and television shows have visited the place. I'm pretty sure it's either the Goat's Head Inn or the Ram's Head Inn. It's one or the other. And And I'd be very curious to see what could be captured there with professional level gear, with professional level technicians, not these television type people like people from Ghost Adventures or, paranormal hunters from the Travel Channel. No, I want audio people who know audio theory with professional level gear. Give them a week. See what happens. If anything shows up, cool. Let's analyze the shit out of it. Like, honestly, I would love for a billionaire like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos to take an interest in the paranormal and just throw like a couple $1 million at it and see what happens.
I mean, that would be interesting, but at the same time, how are we going to find the Curse of Oak Island if we don't have buffoons?
The travel show?
15 years, record 30 episodes of, did you see that? Oh my God, look at that. And then there's nothing there.
Yeah, I mean, it always, it's very clear in this show. I am a believer, you're a skeptic, but
I'm not 100% a skeptic. I'm a skeptic of anybody doing it for TV. What we need is not somebody like a Bezos. Bezos would do it to try to find an angle to make money. We need somebody crazy, somebody who's out of their mind that isn't doing it for money. We need somebody like, what's his name that went nuts from Blink-182?
From Virgin Airline?
No.
Oh, Tom DeLonge.
Yeah, he's lost his mind. I want him to put up like $20 million of his money because he's nuts. He doesn't want to make money from it. He's just like, we got to find the alien men.
Yeah, honestly.
Or like, you got to get somebody like that, or a Macaulay Culkin. You got to get like somebody who's lost a lot that isn't going to, or no, sorry, Macaulay Culkin is sane now. We need somebody who's lost their mind that isn't going to do anything for their own gain.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm not in disagreement with it. Like, if you got the right celebrity behind it, who had the money, the resources, and the true belief to pursue the paranormal sciences such as they are,
and literally have no intention of making any money off of it at all. So that's why I'm saying you got to have somebody who's lost their grip a little bit. So
yeah, so you have to have someone who's willing to throw themselves in,
like Shia LaBeouf, but like Shia LaBeouf not doing a art stunt. Shia LaBeouf like doing like, I don't know, like a couple liters of DMT, tripping on balls for like 6 months straight, and then he's like, I found God, follow me. Like, we need somebody like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be very curious to see. I mean, one dream I have is if I ever came into an absurd amount of money, I'm talking like Amazon money, I'm devoting NASA level equipment. If we can detect the gas around a star that's thousands of light years away and tell what planets are in its orbit, I want NASA level gear in a haunted location year round. If something's there, I'll fucking find it because it can hide forever. And that's what I'm convinced. I think it needs serious money, but it comes down to the age old question. If you were the guy that proved there was no life after death, you know what I mean? It comes down to a question of philosophy. And also, some questions are better left unanswered.
It would be an era of destruction, but then an era of being rebuilt from what comes out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's scary. I mean, it's also like, do you think we'll ever find out that there's aliens? I don't know. Unless they show up on the front lawn of the White House anytime soon. Not likely, because that would change humanity's perceptions overnight. Same with this type of revelation, but there is, again, that crazy notion that if I had the resources, I'd want to know because I'm crazy. And if I was ever given that Faustian deal, you can find out, but you can never tell anybody. To do so is under threat of death.
I was going to say, would you be driven insane by that?
Probably. And that's being very honest and authentic
and it's
to
by the way, if you tell anybody, everybody you ever care about dies, and you still live.
Yeah, that's the knowledge you take to your grave.
You live knowing they're dead, and anybody you speak to dies.
Yeah, like it's crazy. Like, and it brings up such an interesting philosophical thought that, will we ever find out? Probably not, but it's a fun thought experiment. It's something that makes, obviously, for entertaining television. Is something out there? I myself have seen and heard things I cannot explain. I don't know, but Dave Grohl from Foo Fighters seems to think he saw something. So anyway,
Dave Grohl from Foo Fighters broke a limb was taken to the hospital, then came back with a cast on and finished the show. So if he's saying something, I believe that, I don't know what he saw, but I believe he saw something that he couldn't explain.
Exactly. So thank you, Dave Grohl. And the new album is indeed a banger. Anyway, so for our final review of the show, we're going to take a listen to a Switch review Alex did, and this is Bubble Bobble for Friends on the Nintendo Switch. We'll be back, guys, with our outro right after this.
I recently had a chance to sit down and try the new Bubble Bobble for Friends, which is the new Bubble Bobble 4-player Switch game from InIn Games that takes the spirit of the original arcade game and brings it up sort of to the 21st century here in that it takes all the graphics and it gives them sort of an overhaul and a 3D, 2D look. Now, when you play the game, you do have to play with a wireless controller. If you try to play this with your controllers on your Switch, either docked to the side of the Switch in handheld mode, or with the Nintendo Switch Lite, you can't do that. You do have to detach the Joy-Cons or use a Pro controller separately, or a wired controller that's just not attached to the side for whatever reason. I've noticed that with a few other games come out recently where they require that. So if you're trying to play this on the Switch Lite on the go, you actually have to have a second controller with you because you cannot play it as is. That's its one major downside. Now, the plus sides to it are the graphics have a fairly big jump in quality from the original arcade game. It's not going to blow you away, but as far as like a high-def GameCube look is probably the best way I can describe it. The characters are, all colorful and bouncy and energetic. It plays the same as Bubble Bobble always did, only in a sort of 2D, 3D plane. You basically blow bubbles, try to capture enemies in the bubbles, knock those bubbles around to blow them up, and you can rack up points, and then every so often you fight a boss. And when you beat a boss, you collect lots and lots of points. Points are collected by collecting little fruit that shows up on the screen. The larger the piece of fruit, the larger the amount of points you get. And there's bonuses. Each level you can pick up a different letter that spells out extra, and that'll get you extra points, extra lives, extra special things. And the whole game plays out in like a bedroom, and you're going through different sections of the room, and that it was broken up into 5 or 10 levels each with a boss battle at the end. Pretty easy to figure out the boss battle patterns. This is a platformer game that you can actually play with a lot of little kids, all the way up to somebody in their mid-30s and upward that remembers playing the old arcade games. Included in here is actually the original arcade game as well. When you start the game, you can press left on the control pad and it brings you up to an arcade machine and you can play through the full original game. And it's interesting to see how it's basically the same mechanics as before, only just 8-bit versus the modern day graphics. It's not a huge file to download, so if you're somebody who has a metered connection or not the best connection out there, you'll still be able to download the game and install. And I've played with 2 people so far, but you can have up to 4 people playing at the same time, which is pretty sweet. And overall, I think if you're stuck at home with family right now, especially during all this social isolation, coronavirus stuff with family, it's a game that pretty much anybody can play. I believe it's rated E for everyone because there's nothing really violent in it at all. There's nothing objectionable. It's just a fun old school arcade game.
And that's the kind of show it has been here on Twig this week, week number 2 in the quarantine. Believe me, I'm not going to keep track of it because I already forget what day it is most times now anyway. But it's been a fairly good show, some philosophical discussion, some pretty weird discussion with AMD assassins and more on this show. This week it's going to be good. We have Persona 5 Royal coming out on Tuesday, I believe. Resident Evil 3 comes out on the 3rd. Final Fantasy 7 Remake comes out on the 10th. There's a lot of good stuff to be coming out on the site this week. For myself, I'm going to be working on Laurel Silverhand's Explorer's Kit, which is a Dungeons & Dragons dice box, but also comes with some dice and some really cool things about the world of Faerun if you want to set your Dungeons & Dragons games in the Forgotten Realms. I'm also going to be looking at the Explorer's Guide to Wildmount, which is based upon Season 2 of Critical Role. Evidently, it takes place after Episode 50. If you happen to follow that show, I'll have some opinionated thoughts on that later next week. I'm also working on some books from DK Publishing. I also have, this is something I didn't talk about in the beginning of the show. I have the new Judge Dredd RPG in the Worlds of 2000 AD from Modiphius. I got the main book and the first supplement from that. So we'll be talking about that. Maybe we'll get a chance to play that at some point this year, whenever social distancing ends. And I also next week will be reviewing Sonic the Hedgehog from Paramount Home Entertainment, which is available on digital this week. Here's a hint. It's fantastic. You should buy it. Alex, what about you? What is coming up from you this week?
I got a bunch of stuff from Mill Creek to look at, some more Ultraman, more in the Hard Ticket to Hawaii series of movies. They're releasing them basically monthly in batches of 2. So they're slowly releasing all 12 features, which I'm happy for because they're all remastered and they look way better than they have the right to look for being crappy direct-to-video movies from the early 90s. Is
it the same guy directing them every time?
Yes, every single time. I think his son directed one movie. And then as the series went on, it went from being theatrical 35 millimeter to being shot on Shidio.
Oh.
It went from being like made to be widescreen to being made to be full screen. So it'll be interesting to see how the last few releases from like 98 were like. But the deal is it's usually the same women cast in different roles or sometimes the same roles as part of like a secret agent group is trying to stop ridiculous, stupid stuff from happening. You've seen the reviews of like Hard Ticket to Hawaii, right?
Yeah. And where they blow up a blow-up doll with a rocket launcher. Yeah.
The later films end up having Julie Strain in, who you probably know from a lot of the Trauma films of the day, as well as I think Marcus Buff Bagwell's in it, in a couple of them. So I'm not sure if it's these ones. He's in like the last, I think, 1 or 2 pictures they released. Yeah, they would get like the low budget WCW guys to show up in their movies. As far as anything else goes, I have the expansion for Control to check out. I also have Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, the fighting game in the mobile RPG franchise, as well as I think a couple things from VVS Films, and I still have the mountain of La La Land's soundtrack records to go through, which is going to take quite some time because some of these sets are like 6 hours and you want to listen more than once. So you need a whole day to listen to one set and get the nuances from it. But other than that, that's what I've got going on. So there'll be a Tour to Treasure probably Tuesday or Wednesday. There'll be a Mayhem Mics coming up soon that I recorded with Blanchard on the empty AEW arena show and how that sort of compared to what WWE was doing. You've also got, is there more Fools Who Ride coming out?
As far as I know, we've recorded 14 episodes. I know this week we're reviewing Star Trek Picard, so expect our review of Star Trek Picard on Future Imperfect, but also expect another expanded upon thoughts with the Nerds of the Third Power Group. We're also going to be reviewing
more
Netflix's
perspectives.
The Witcher.
Is always good.
Exactly. Plus, it's like with Star Wars. I'll talk about it endlessly because everybody online, and here's my mini review of Picard. Fuck you. I hate it. I really do. Oh my God, I hate it so much.
Fuck you, except Riker can make me pizza any day. And that you can use that as that can be a euphemism, that can be a double entendre, whatever you want, but he can get it.
Honestly, if there was if Paramount was to ask me for a quote about Star Trek Picard when it comes out on Blu-ray, I would say Riker's pizza is the best. Mike, ThisWeekInGeek.net. That would be my only quote for the series.
I never thought all I needed was Riker to make me pizza.
Yeah, exactly.
Or what's your quote? It's not delivery, it's Riker's pizza.
Data. It's Riker's. It's so good. So anyway, we're going to be recording that later in the week with Steve Megatron Phillips and a guest on this show who's done some writing in the Star Trek universe in a professional sense. I'm really excited. This will be the first time we've had a guest on this show in quite some time. So anyways, lots of stuff to talk about. Like I said, we got Loose Cannon. We have Sunday Funnies coming up. That should be premiering before the end of next month. So keep it locked here to ThisWeekInGeek.net for more great geek content. We will be working through this entire quarantine as hard as we can to deliver to you the best entertainment for free of charge, because you should be entertained, educated, and informed. And that's our duty to you as journalists, newscasters, and entertainers. So for This Week in Geek, we have been
Alex, the producer.
I've been Mike, the Birdman Dodd, saying live free or die hard. And in the friends of Jackie Bam Bam might say, be cool, be kind, be careful. We'll catch you next time right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
Well, that's our show. All right, here's the deal. Every time you watch my show, I will send you $40.
Checks will not be honored.
You've been listening to This Week in Geek, your source for guaranteed nonsense or your money back. Tune in next week for more info on the most important things you didn't need to know. Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net and subscribe to our podcast through iTunes or any podcatcher. If you'd like to comment on this episode, head over to this episode's post at ThisWeekInGeek.net and leave a comment through Facebook Connect. Follow us on Twitter at ThisWeekInGeek.net and follow our Instagram at twig_official_podcast. Social media not your thing? Send us an email at feedback@ThisWeekInGeek.net. We'll see you next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
Just when you think this show is terrible, something wonderful happens.
What?
It ends.
I have to go. Somewhere there is a crime happening.